The 90s were packed with blockbusters that defined a generation, but not every film got the love it deserved at the box office. Some real gems slipped through the cracks only to be rediscovered and appreciated years later. Here are a few underrated 90s box office flops that are definitely worth a second look. Hero. In this comedy drama, a low-life criminal and loser by the name of Bernie becomes a hero. The problem is that only he knows it. While the film had a good reception by the public and critics, it holds a score of 67% on Rotten Tomatoes. It was a massive failure for Columbia Pictures. Regardless, it's a strong comedy approach that stars people like Dustin Hoffman, Gina Davis, Andy Garcia, and Joan Cusack. It's not exactly the film's selling point, but the set piece of the plane crash is impressive.
Everybody thinks of you as a hero, Mr. Bubber. How do you see yourself?
I think we're all heroes if you catch us at the right moment. We all have something noble and decent in us trying to get out, and we're all less than heroic at other times.
Ravenous tells the story of a second lieutenant during the Mexican-American War who gets exiled after his superiors learn he had to play dead and let his partners get killed in order to combat the enemy. Boyd gets assigned to stay at a military outpost where he and others witness the arrival of a strange individual who turns out to have survived by resorting to cannibalism. The blend of Western with horror is very effective, and Ravenous has since become a cult classic with an admirable cast that consists of Guy Pearce, Robert Carlyle, Jeremy Davies, and David Arquette, among others.
No one just ends up at Fort Spencer. We come for a reason.
Yours being?
Well,
Indigo.
it's an old Indian myth from the north.
Man eats the flesh of another. He absorbs the other man's strength.
The Rocketeer. Joe Johnston's superhero film tells the story of a stunt pilot in the late 1930s in Hollywood who finds a very strange device, a rocket pack that he can use to fly. Cliff Seckard quickly becomes a vigilante sought by the Nazis, the FBI, and the Howard Hughes, who actually owns the device. But saving the world is just more important than anything else. Featuring state-of-the-art special effects by Industrial Light and Magic, The Rocketeer was a huge film in 1991. The problem is that the budget was simply too high, and Disney failed to see a decent return at the box office.
How do I look? Like a hood ornament. Stand clear. What was that? A flying man!
Chaplain, starring Robert Downey Jr. in one of his most important roles, was critically acclaimed back in 1992. Today, it sits at 59% on Rotten Tomatoes, but back then, it was important enough to get nominated for 3 Academy Awards. Sadly, audiences didn't quite connect with the biography, as they perhaps expected a reenactment of Chaplin's abilities and not a gut-wrenching depiction of the mind of one of the most important performers of all time.
Onto the stage right now! Chaplain!
What do I do? Cut it. No, wait, hold it. No, keep it going.
Big reaction. Who is this?
Your message reaches everyone, everywhere, and there's no control over them.
Be careful.
Camera!
Directed by Michael Mann and based on the screenplay by Mann and Eric Roth, The Insider is a heart-wrenching biographical drama about the dynamics of big tobacco that discards accuracy in favor of a much more effective narrative. The result is a fascinating film that failed to gather a decent box office return, but was actually acclaimed by critics. It still sits at a solid 96% on Rotten Tomatoes, and in 2000, it was mentioned in 7 categories at the Academy Awards, albeit winning none. It's one of the best whistleblowing dramas ever made.
Who is this?
They have no right to hide behind a corporate agreement.
He can talk, we can air it.
The worst kind of an organized smear campaign against a whistleblower.
Shoplifting, failing to pay child support.
They can paint everything with that brush.
Made by Peter Jackson in 1996 and featuring extraordinary visual effects created by Weta Digital, The Frighteners tells the story of Frank Bannister, a man who uses his psychic abilities to scam people. One of Jackson's obscure films, The Frighteners, is a very entertaining horror comedy starring Michael J. Fox. The film failed to meet box office expectations despite Universal Pictures being certain of the concept. The failure was probably due to Independence Day being released at the same time and the Atlanta Summer Olympics getting all the attention.
You can see spirits?
Emanations are normally confined to the cemetery.
You cannot push spirits around!
Although they do escape.
We're supposed to be his business partners.
Everyone says that you're a fraud, but I've seen what you can do.
Give it up, Frank. Death ain't no way to make a living.
The Hudsucker Proxy. One of the last screwball comedies ever made, the Coen brothers' epic is one of the team's most underrated features. Reception by critics wasn't overwhelming. It still sits at 63% on Rotten Tomatoes, and the film was mostly forgotten very quickly. Nevertheless, it's a very interesting execution of the Coens' particular style of comedy, and it's one of Paul Newman's last performances. That should be enough to make you want to revisit it.
No magazines, no coffee, Musburger. I want to see Musburger. Oh, did he jump out a window too?
Don't worry, Mr. Musburger! I got you! I got you by your pants!
Pants.
Event Horizon takes audiences to 2047, where in the far reaches of outer space, a crew of astronauts is trying to figure out the location of a missing spaceship that has been sending a distress signal. A great example of the space horror subgenre of science fiction, Event Horizon, is a cult classic that was sadly butchered by Paramount before release. It failed to recover its budget, but soon after, it got the status it deserved when DVDs kept selling out. It doesn't matter if you like sci-fi or not, Event Horizon is a great genre film that never gets boring.
There were 18 people on board this ship when it disappeared. I want them all accounted for.
Opening outer door.
It came back, abandoned.
Any crew? Negative. This place is a tomb.
But it didn't come back alone.
Captain Miller! I've got some problems here!
Strange Days is the story of Lenny Farrow, a former police officer who has amassed the fame of being a black marketer capable of getting squids, devices that are able to store and reproduce memories. Call it ahead of its time, or just too fundamental in its execution of the genre, Strange Days is an interesting film that feels worth revisiting. The cyberpunk film, written by James Cameron and Jay Cox Jr. and directed by Catherine Bigelow, was a box office bomb that divided critics, 67% on Rotten Tomatoes, and audiences alike.
It's the dark end of the street. How do you like it now?
He records it all. Everything.
And gives it to you.
Why me?
There's more to this whole thing than you think.
Give us the tape right now!
You don't know how high up the food chain this thing goes.
Do you know what this tape could do if it got out?
Dark City. Despite receiving constant praise from critics, it currently holds a 75% rating on Rotten Tomatoes. Studio interference and the dumbing down of the film led to significant controversy. It failed to move the box office because it was released at the same time as Titanic, and audiences preferred to watch the James Cameron epic. Regardless, it's one of the best science fiction films ever made, with iconic movie critic Roger Ebert celebrating it every chance he got.
Hi, Uncle Carl.
Johnny!
Getting the hang of it, John. Maybe one day I'll be working for you. This is the machine the strangers use to amplify their thoughts. The machine that changes their world. You must take control of it. You must make the machine yours. I know you can beat them, John. But you must concentrate.
In School Ties, a football prodigy receives a scholarship to go to a prestigious prep school in Massachusetts. Upon arriving at school, he realizes his classmates aren't exactly fond of his people. Starring Brendan Fraser in one of his first roles, School Ties is a solid drama based on a clever script that never tries to be other than a sharp commentary about religious diversity in the upbringing of America and the establishment of its values. Man on the Moon. The film about American icon Andy Kaufman was famously acclaimed because of Jim Carrey's great performance, one so crucial in his career that it sparked much controversy. Despite a strong campaign, he didn't get nominated for an Academy Award. The reception by critics was good, but at the box office it failed to make a dent that year. It's a very interesting biopic, but it does help if you are acquainted with Kaufman's extremely peculiar comedy style.
You don't know the real me.
There isn't a real you.
Oh, yeah. I forgot.
A Simple Plan tells the story of Hank and Jacob Mitchell, who alongside their friend Lou come upon a crashed plane in the middle of nowhere. Inside the vessel, there's a stash of money that they decide will solve all their problems. Directed by Sam Raimi, A Simple Plan is one of the best noir thrillers of the 1990s. Starring Bill Paxton and Billy Bob Thornton, the film surprisingly failed to move the box office beyond expectations. Acclaimed by critics, it features one of Thornton's greatest performances.
Back to the welfare office for Jacob. The occasional odd job. But with Lou gone now. Just himself and his dog all alone in that filthy apartment. How long do you give him, Hank?
Stop it!
Sounds wonderful, doesn't it? Everything just like it used to be.